Michael, yeah, we were just joking around a little bit how it's been a long time since we spoke, but we do remember each other. And so I just want to start off with first, thank you for coming on. And, why don't you just open up with like what it is that you're most excited about, maybe recently, and then we could dive into, how you got to there.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, John, and thanks for inviting me. What excites me about the work that I'm doing is giving kids a voice. They don't always have one, or if they do have one, it's not always heard. Kids can talk to other kids. Adults talk to adults. Adults talk to kids, but do kids really talk to adults? And when they do, are the adults listening? Or do they just go, yeah, yeah, things will be fine, that kind of thing? And what I'm hearing more and more is that kids want to talk about subjects that matter to them. And gun violence in schools is one of them. And since you and I last spoke, there have been several more school shootings, and it's had a huge impact on young people. And although, one may say, hey, it's still kind of rare that it may happen in a school, in terms of how many schools there are and actually how many shootings. But it's the fear of a school shooting that really worries students. And I hear these stories, talking to a substitute teacher who said, when I enter a classroom for the first time, many times one of the kids will approach me and say, and will say, hey, do you know where to hide me if something happens? And then I hear other students talk about, they walk into a room, they kind of scope it out. Okay, so if something happens, this is where I'm going to run. And it, the stress of that is just ridiculous. They should be focusing on their lessons and focusing on um, each other and school activities and not running and hiding. It's not like when we were kids, we went to school, there an occasional fight broke out and that kind of thing, but it didn't involve a gun. None, and certainly didn't involve a weapon of mass destruction, which is what an AR-15 is. I mean, that's the design of it, and that's being used by other kids and in schools they get access to. So there's a growing frustration among young people that no one's listening to them. And over again, the message is clear. How many lives will it take for you to listen? That line was part of the project that I did with the Detroit Youth Choir. They were they are a internationally known choir, quite renowned actually, and they were on the TV show America's Got Talent, and they came in as a runner-up, second place in season 14. So they almost won the whole show, but they've been on several times after that, and they gained a following for America's Got Talent audiences. Anyway, the reason why I contacted them, I noticed that I was on YouTube and poking around, and this idea came to me. I want to involve kids really expressing themselves about how they feel. Um, and I was motivated by seeing these kid choirs that were on YouTube. And then a good friend of mine who is a music composer that I work with a lot does this for a living. He works with kids and adults, but mostly with kids in getting them to express themselves through song. So he'll go in and do a workshop. He'll teach them how to harmonize and how to come up with lyrics. And he writes the music part of it, and they fill in all the blanks. So I thought, well, this would be great. Why don't we try the Detroit Youth Choir? Because I noticed on YouTube they did a video and they dedicated it to the victims of Uvalde. And they took a Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child of Mine, and they sang it in dedication to this one young victim who died that day. And I thought, well, why don't we take it one step further? Why don't we have them write an original song? And And the composer and I batted some ideas back and forth, and we came up with "Will You Hear Me Now?" And we called some people that we know, and we tested it out, and everyone seemed to think that was a good title because that's really what the kids are asking. Will you hear me now? And then after another shooting, well, how about now? And so we took that title, and he wrote the music part of it, and we took that to Detroit. One of the most moving things, and I was actually talking about this earlier today, I was on a call. We sent them the music, um, and we said, learn the music itself, and we're going to come there next week, and we're going to work with you and have you actually write the lyrics. When we got there, they were already in the back room working on it, and they were throwing out lines back and forth, and we didn't take our coats off. We just opened up the the production bag, took out the camera, and started shooting because it was just one of those moments. And I thought to myself, wow, I just was so moved by the enthusiasm to start working on this, it was already happening without me even doing anything. And then we had to like sort of stop the flow and explain why we were there, and we filmed that, and then we did some interviews with the kids about how they feel. So they wrote the lyrics to the song, and then we asked them, what do you feel about the lyrics? What do you feel about what you're saying? And what do you think needs to be done? We put that all together, and that's been the video. Since you and I have talked, I have taken that concept in that video to a junior high school in Queens. And I had their school choir sing the song, and then took the video and intercut the Detroit Youth Choir and the choir in Queens to do the whole song. And then I interviewed the Queens about how they felt. And this one girl, and she opens the video. It was so moving. So I'm talking to her, right? And I'm thinking, well, I don't know, is she comfortable with this? I said to her, so, how do you feel about the recent shootings? There was one a few days prior to that. So it was fresh on everyone's mind. Which is so sad. This was like the second day of school, and there was a shooting on the first day of school. This was in September. So suddenly she just starts crying. And she's apologizing for it. And, I said, please, just speak. And she just says that, she just thinks that she hears all this and, well, they're going to do something about it. And then she realizes nothing gets done. And what if it's me or my friends, And it really hit home to me what this bottled up tension and fear means to the kids. And they're holding on to that. If they're asking substitute teachers, do you know where to hide me? If they're looking for escape routes, so that's what motivates me. That's what I did recently to, since we've met, taking that project further. And I want to now take that and go to other schools and sort of add to it. And then, see what happens.
Yeah. So you're focusing on, if I remember correctly, and you can share more on this, you're trying to get it to the government level to hear the children's voices, that we want some kind of change in the schools with the policies and everything with guns and whatnot. Feel free to elaborate on that a little bit more, but I also want to understand what got you into this. What really drove you into listening to these children and start producing things and start helping them reach to the government?
Years ago, I worked on a project with the Newark Boys and Girls Club. And I was part of an association called the ITVA, International Television Association. It was a professional group. And I was a local chapter president for a couple of years. And we were looking to do a project, and we thought, hey, it'd be really cool to collaborate with a club and do something with young people. And so I showed up once a week at the club on a Saturday and said to the kids, let's do a project together. Why not do something on drugs, because that seemed to be a real issue in that particular uh, area, as well as what they wanted to do in terms of getting a message out. They have done other anti-drug programs. So I knew that was probably a good match. And so we came up with a drug PSA, and then I worked with them on it for about a month uh, or so. And I said, so what kind of story do you want to tell? I don't want this to be me. I want this to be you and your ideas. What do you think is going to resonate with your friends? And one kid raised his hand and said, hey, I saw this cool horror movie where a hand came out of a grave. I said, that's the idea. That is fantastic. So we actually ended up doing the spot, and we took that kid and we laid him down and put dirt over his arm and then had him pick up his hand at the end of the spot when a drug user's hand came down to pick up his fallen crack vial. So the hand came up, and then the title says, "Don't let drugs go you down."
I like that.
So I got an Emmy for that, for directing, which was, of course, wonderful and all. But I felt like, I directed the piece, but these kids really were a part of it. They made it with me, and one kid had the idea of even the whole spot. And so I said to the Academy, can we do something? And they jumped right on it. They made up Emmy certificates for all the kids with their names. We went and had a ceremony in Newark. They got all dressed up for it. I got to understand where these kids are coming from. They all didn't have access to suits and ties, and it was an undertaking just to do that. And so we had some government officials. We had a member of the Academy. They came and they read out names, and we gave the kids a certificate, and they were just thrilled. And when it was all over, a student came up to me and said, so what are we doing next week? And my mouth dropped. It just shot right through me. I didn't have an answer. And I saw the look on her face that, like, what are we doing now? And that haunted me for a long time. And, you get involved with your career and different projects that are for the adult world. Well, actually, the videos I do are for the adult world, just from a kid's point of view. But you get involved in these corporate projects and everything. And I always knew, I want to do something again. And so when I had enough of hearing about the school shootings, and it was the year anniversary of the Uvalde shooting, it came in a flash to do something about, to do a project where kids would make a video somehow. I didn't quite know how I was going to put together. I started making phone calls, and within a day, it was, we're going to do a choir video. We're going to go to Detroit. I mean, doors just flew open because we knew what we wanted, and the composer that I worked with had already worked with the Detroit Youth Choir. So it took one phone call and they were ready to go. And that's what we did. And so we did a GoFundMe um, page and raised money just to get the crew to go to Detroit. And of course I pulled in a lot of favors, and there was a lot of people who were volunteering on the project. And, we used the GoFundMe for the air and hotel and things that we couldn't get. And so forth. But that really started me on that journey. And then I've been making little videos since then. And the last one that I did, I asked the kids to talk about what their feelings are on the election, post-election. This was like in December. And what were their concerns coming up for the inauguration and the new government. And they, made selfies, and then I used some of the kids that I interviewed in Queens for the other video, put all together, and just released that about 2 or so weeks ago. And basically, it's non-political. They don't care about Republicans or Democrats. In fact, their parents are a little bit of both, And the same thing with the gun violence. Some of them come from homes where the gun's securely stored. Other comes from homes that don't want guns in the house. So that's not the issue. What they want is not to get shot in school. It's really that simple. And then also when they were commenting on what they want the new government to do, gun violence was the number one thing. We want to feel safe in school. And then others were talking about human rights because I guess they were hearing there were going to be a lot of changes, and that was a concern of theirs. Um, but yeah,
It's good. I like it. I like what you're doing. So, what changes have you seen already besides the kids sharing their voice and stuff? Have you seen anything statewide or something like, government level kind of looking at things and trying to change something?
well, I was gaining a lot of traction in the summer and in the fall, and then everything changed. And in fact, the people that I was talking to are no longer in their jobs, like the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. So we're starting from scratch, again, in fact, I was on LinkedIn today and I'm noticing people that I've been talking to are already in other jobs. Because they were fired immediately. That office was closed, and we knew if the result was the way it turned out to be, that was going to happen. So now more than ever, we need to speak up and speak out and get kids to say what they want. And hopefully there'll be enough people listening that they'll know it's beyond politics and it's really about what we need to be doing to make them feel safe. They're counting on us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I have two kids of my own, and I don't remember going to school and practicing. If something was to happen with somebody coming in with a gun and running around, and what do we do now? They have all these um, drills that they do. I forget what they call it, but it's crazy. I agree with you, and it's unfortunate that we have to come to this. But like, what would be your next step? Like, if you're starting fresh, like, I would assume you're trying to reach out to somebody else that might be in that kind of same field or area. But I mean, are you trying to find other schools or other kids to kind of build even more videos and more of a social media kind of? Go ahead.
I want to create a movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to do is take this project like the way I did with, or not me, but my team, um, to the junior high school in Queens. And I want to go to other schools, in the country and just show that this is a united front on will you do something already? Um, and hopefully, because the times we feel like we're just singing to the choir, preaching to the choir in a way. Hopefully, there'll be somewhere there'll be some changes made. What is not being fully appreciated is that these young kids are going to be voters. And in fact, some of them that I interviewed have already turned 18 and have already voted in for the first time in back in November. So to say thoughts and prayers are yeah, 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 and push them aside is such a mistake because they're going to be the constituents one day and will vote you or in or out of office. So and that's why I'm focusing so much on young people. Try to change the hearts and minds of adults.
Yeah.
And it's worth it to try, but really it's the young people to get them to feel empowered. They have something to say and they can say it. A lot of them don't feel like no one's going to listen. So, and they're kind of quiet at first and then when they start talking, all these things come out, and yeah.
Yeah. Would you agree that like that's a society kind of deal, like pushing them down, like you have no right to say anything?
It's, I think it's done on a subtle level. And, and they hear of protests and they don't hear praise of people protesting. They hear negative spins on it, like it's some kind of um, riot or unrest or something, especially with schools, because we're talking about schools now and young people. And my projects include grammar school, high school, and college. School shootings, as you know, happens K through 12 and in universities, you know. Um, and so the goal is to make them feel like they're empowered to speak up. And they could, it doesn't need to be in a disruptive destructive way, but it can be something that gains attention. They don't realize they have that power within. Maybe this conversation would have been necessary in the 60s. I don't know. I was just a little boy. But um, I remember being in college in the 80s, and the professor saying, "Wow, you young people, you don't stand up for things." Just a generation ago, we were marching for equal rights and all this and that, and there was such a complacency then, and it's only has gotten worse. Um, but I think it's not because young people don't care; they just don't know they have that ability.
You're right. I agree with you. I feel like they just shut down and, you know, and maybe it starts at the home level too. It's the parents as well, or whoever's raising them, that whoever they're living with, whoever they're surrounded by. It could be, obviously it's always affecting somebody, right? So, I'm teaching my kids everything I know, but if I don't know something, I'm going to reach out to somebody else that knows more than me, and hopefully they can teach them that, right? And that's the idea. But, not everybody's fortunate enough to be around people that are going to lift you up and kind of excel you to raise your voice and speak up. So that's something like we have to work on together as adults, to put that in our kids now to speak up. And, I want to say it probably took me even a while. I don't know what I was like back then, but I probably don't speak up as much sometimes. You sit back and you just watch things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of us could probably agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just something we all need to work on. And I mean, what would you say would be the best way to, share with a child? Like, you can speak up and say what you want to say and not feel ashamed, not feel like you're put down, and you have a voice.
I think doing projects like this, going to schools, which I'm doing, working with counselors and teachers to get them involved, because then they get the students excited. That's what I did with Queens. So by the time I got there, the kids were all ready for me, because the adults talked to the kids and got them to understand this is your opportunity to say what you want to say, and it was very effective that way. But I think that what's happening now is we're seeing this sort of high school mentality play out in the adult world. This everything from commenting on who's wearing what in the inauguration, and who gave air kisses, and who got booed at the Super Bowl, and they don't want any of that. That's high school. They get that every day in their high school. Who likes me, who doesn't like me, name calling and shaming. They want the adults to act like adults. I mean, honestly. And so that's where we're at. And when they see that, there's a giving up quality of like, oh my God, um, why should I care? But of course, that's not everyone. And to have an understanding that they can make a difference is the great way to start.
Yeah, it's huge. And just you sharing that with the children that you already got started, just singing it and them creating it themselves is awesome. There's a lot of heart, I'm sure, behind that, and a lot of thinking. I did watch your video, and I'll put the link in the description and everything with the podcast. So whoever's listening or watching this, feel free to check it out. It's definitely worth checking out and sharing it with others. Because even though I don't know when you did record that one, even though it's in the past, it's still something that we need to work on now, right?
Yeah, it was only in 2023. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not old, and it's not gonna never be old news at all because it's going to be with us for a long time until it's if corrected completely if we look at it that way. So yeah, I mean, like that's awesome. And it's arts, right? So it gets the kids being creative and having a good time and
Sure.
sharing what they really want to express. Is there other ways you're thinking of doing this besides just like music?
Well, the music is only one part of it, because the music has that anthem quality of uniting everyone. But the videos that I've done are mostly kids looking in the camera, just speaking
Okay.
what's on their mind, and they make selfies and send them to me.
Right.
Yeah, so the singing is actually very, very little. If the whole body of work that I have been doing for the past year and a half has really been just kids talking right to camera,
Yeah.
looking.
And that's just like quick little stories about why they want gun, yeah, why they don't want the guns in school.
Yeah, or whatever I'm asking them about what they want the new government to do, and what's on your mind in terms of mental health and gun violence. We did a video just on that for Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay.
So there was no singing in that. The singing was just a way to get the choir, the Detroit Youth Choir, to give a voice, and then others join in that, and it's a very unifying thing to do, especially when you work with kids who think and have ideas, oh, I can't sing or whatever. And then when they start doing it, and the music composer that I work with is just really great at doing that. He just really works with the kids and gets them to find that inner voice of theirs. Um, and they're surprised by the sound that comes out, and it's quite beautiful to watch, really.
Yeah, like I said, I watched the video and I was moved by it as well. And and that's what kind of you sent that to me before we even spoke, so it kind of got me moved and like, hey, look, we got to connect and see what's really going on. What's Michael up to and how is he changing the world? Um, Michael, what's the best way somebody, besides watching the YouTube video, what's the best way somebody can learn more or even try to connect with you and help, maybe get other kids to be on your videos or even, reach out to the government or what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, if they want to get involved in the project that I'm doing, they can just simply go to our website, www.willyouhearmenow.com. And if they know of some kids that want to make some selfie videos, please send them to me. If they know of a school where the choir in the school might want to perform the song, or just even if their music is not a part of it, where some kids in the school want to talk about what their feelings are, we could do that as well. It's great to work these into programs in the school. So, there might be a debate class, there might be a music class, there might be other kinds of subjects that lend themselves to speaking out and speaking up and being a part of this. And so I'm always looking for creative ways to do just that, so that it makes sense for the school as well. Um, yeah, so we go in there and we give little talks and teach them how to do that, and then when they're making the videos, I'm directing them along the way, just so they know how to look in the camera and how to, make taking this and putting it into this. So it's more succinct, and yeah, it's great. It really is.
That is
Uh,
cool. Yeah, I appreciate it. What are three key things you've learned and used along your journey?
to listen, listen, and listen. I'm not trying to be cute about it, but it's so important to listen. Once these kids are given the opportunity to speak and you hear what they're saying, you really hear it, so much can be learned. But if there's this, you know, cutting them off and patting, and, we're going to take care of you, our thoughts and prayers. And if you even look at the way government people even speak to each other when they're at these hearings, if there's constant interrupting. And and there's constantly someone trying to spin something some way and twist it this way, and because no one's listening. They're just talking. So will you hear me now? Literally means, will you hear me? How many lives will it take for you to listen to what? To what we want, to not be shot in school. It's so it's maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but this is the most important thing that we could be doing. We could be really listening, and we can learn so much about what kids need. You can just read their faces and you can see fear, or you can see they're okay, or something else is going on. If you're just fully present.
You're right. Present is a big one. That's something I've been working on myself as well. And listening, I totally agree with that. So are there two other things that you've learned and used along your journey?
Um, I would say, well, it sounds like listening again, giving kids a chance to speak, to also just being able to hear subtext and know where to go with that. And, many times something might be presented in a guarded way. And so my experience in doing this, I know there's something else behind that, and I'll find out what that is. Um, so listening and being fully present. A third thing is to just keep trying. And, it's so easy to just go up, new government, gun violence prevention offices are being closed. What are we going to do? And one kid that appeared in my video says, let's not lose hope. And he actually met with President Biden and Vice President Harris in the White House because of his efforts as a young person. Quite extraordinary young man. And he said on camera in my video, let's not, here's what we can be doing. We could be working on safe storage. We could be working on getting the message out, one step at a time. And he was already seeing the little steps to take now that'll help set up success in the future, as opposed to just saying, oh, let's give our hands up because, what are we going to do now?
That's great. Yeah.
Which is a trap we can all fall into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we always have to continue to keep persisting and moving forward and not giving up. There's a great, it's a great lesson. We all, even as adults, we need to learn that too, right?
Yeah. And I fell into that trap. When I heard that, well, because the kids are your teacher.
hmm
The kids really are your teacher.
That is so true. And they get you to that like next level. Like I have to show up a little bit different here. You know what I mean? Like I have to really step it up. And yeah, they do push it, even though they might not intentionally do it, but they do push it. Yeah. Michael, this has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on and sharing what you're doing and helping gun violence within schools and helping kids get their voices out. And again, I'll put the video, the link for that and your other link in there in the show notes as well. So I appreciate you sharing everything and just keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Yes, you too.
Mhm.